Matthew, I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things to do on LinkedIn is to follow comedy accounts, so to speak, like sales comedy accounts, right? I don't know if you follow any of those.
We're talking about meme accounts on LinkedIn.
Some memes, yeah, or like kind of the TikTok-ish videos.
My time on LinkedIn is extremely productive, I will have you know.
Okay, fair enough. It makes it into my feed, and I always pause on them. And a lot of them, I guess now I'm feeling maybe kind of guilty of it after our conversation today, are the ones where it's the SE jokes. It's like the things about your dumb AE counterparts or you being asked to do something that's counterproductive and how you as an SE get frustrated at those things. I'm making these jokes seem terribly lame with that description.
Something along the lines of like, you've got a 2-panel comic and it's like, SE, I've just spent 10 hours creating a perfect customized demo. And then it's like, AE, we need to do a different demo in 10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
We've seen this stuff.
You're much better explaining this. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We talked about that a little bit today. We had Art Fromm. If you're not familiar with Art, you should go find him. That's Fromm. He said he's the only one on LinkedIn with that name, which he may be. I don't know. I've not really researched that. He is the author of a book called Making Seamless Sales with a capital SEAM, meaning SE for pre-sales world, AM account managers, account executives.
Yeah, the capital M, managing an account.
Yes. It's all about the relationships that we should have. We talked a little bit about that. Maybe we need to pump the brakes a little bit on some of this making fun and find ways instead to work better together, which I agree with. I'm not saying I'm going to not like laugh at the jokes, but maybe let's think about more serious collaboration with our sales counterparts.
We always deserve a little laugh here and there. But I will say this, in a lot of the roles and onboarding that I have seen and heard about, that conversation comes up. How do AEs and SEs work together? It's something that we've always been trying to figure out. And Art had some great ideas for us today.
He really did. More about Art, in case you don't know, he's the author of the book. That comes from his whole career and experience. He's been in engineering, software, he's been in pre-sales, he's been in sales leadership as well, and has worked actually extensively, most recently in sales enablement, which is where I know him from. He talks a little bit in the podcast about kind of the various groups that he works with for that. And he's pulled all of that information together into his book. I recommend checking it out. We'll have that linked in the show notes so that you can go check out his book if you want to see it. He does keynotes. He was at SoulCon. He was one of our workshop presenters at SoulCon East just a few weeks ago. Highly recommend you follow Art and check out his book if you're looking for your next read.
So, without any further ado, let's get into the conversation right after the break.
Ever wish Salesforce was actually designed for pre-sales? You're not alone. Salesforce focuses on the commercial side, while pre-sales teams and technical opportunity management are often left behind. That's why they built Elvance, the Salesforce native platform created specifically for high-performing pre-sales teams. With Elvance, you can track technical progress, manage capacity, surface product gaps, and forecast with confidence. From intelligent resource scheduling to AI-powered opportunity scorecards, Elvance gives you the clarity and control to move faster and win smarter. And it works exactly where the rest of your teams already do, right inside your Salesforce CRM. Rated 5-star on G2 and the Salesforce App Exchange, pre-sales consultants love how intuitive it is and the time it saves them, and leaders love the visibility and strategic insights it brings. So if you're ready to stop fighting your CM and start getting real value from it, head to elvance.io to learn more. That's ELVANCE.io. Hi, Art. Welcome to the Pre-Sales Podcast.
Hey, Jack and Matthew. So good to be here, and welcome to everybody that's listening.
We're lucky to have you on, Art. All three of us were in the same room not too long ago at SoulCon East, right here in New York. Shout out to New York, of course. So great to be speaking again after you delivered a great workshop.
It was super enjoyable. I really liked the takeaways, which a lot of which we'll pivot off of here so that we can share some of that. But yeah, everybody that was there was a great event. Highly recommend everybody to continue to follow Pre-Sales Collective and watch for these opportunities. It's must attend.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It was a fantastic event. We're already starting to plan for next year. It was actually interesting. We were talking at SoulCon as you were getting ready for your workshop saying, well, we've got this podcast episode, which we had planned to have you on the show, I think maybe before you'd even planned to be at SoulCon. And so it's interesting how the timing worked out so closely together, much like it was last week with our episode with Wendy McHenry. It was the same thing. She was also presenting and then happened to be the next podcast guest. I didn't plan this to have our workshop presenters to be our following two. It's like a SoulCon follow, but it's worked out. It's like the SoulCon special edition.
There you go. Exactly.
Well, I do want to continue with kind of the topic that you presented there, which was talking about AE and SE relationships, or to make it better for your book, SE and AM relationships, because your book is called Making Seamless Sales with a capital SEAM. Talk to us about that, the idea behind the book. Why should someone pick this up today? Because they should.
It was a labor of love for sure. I was in sales and sales management positions for like 10 years after being a customer for like 8 years. And then the last 25 plus years, I've been in sales enablement positions where either with a company or now on my own for 16 years, I've helped pre-sales and sales teams alike with their consultative sales transformation. So helping sales teams generate more revenue, margin, win rate, and all the rest of that. And what I kept seeing over and over again was that I would often in a given client either be working with just pre-sales or with just sales. And inevitably, especially from the pre-sales side, there would be comments like, oh, this is really good for us as pre-sales, but when is my salesperson going to go through it? Because they should know this as well.
I had so many of those thoughts. Every time I would get some type of training, I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't be the only one consuming this. Everyone on the team needs to know this information.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things that are conspiring against that for happening because, among other things, there's the separate organizational structures. Typically, many sales training companies purposely only focus on one or the other. And even as I was working on my book starting in 2003 and all the way through last year, finally publishing it in September, I talked with several of my colleagues that do sales training and things. And they're like, wow, that's an ambitious project because nobody can ever figure out how to make it work together. So that was the main goal of it, was to lay out what I know. I have a portfolio business. So I work with Peter Cohan. I work with John Kerr. I have a sales methodology with Steve Bistritz. And I have a bunch of other stuff in my methodology. And what it occurred to me is not only are there things that pre-sales should know about sales and sales should know about pre-sales, but there's also many things in my portfolio that somebody who maybe took great demo doesn't know about something else. And so I curated the best of the best and stitched together one full story, one full track of how SEs, pre-sales, and what I call AMs, as you point out, Jack, sales can work together better. And by the way, quite a long time ago, when I was working with somebody, I mentioned about seamless sales, and not just it sort of rolled off my tongue and they're like, oh, that's really catchy. You should go with that seamless sales with the SE and the AM working together better. So that's where it started, was to focus on them. And then it kind of exploded from there.
So this is almost a comprehensive review of everything that you've taught and learned when it comes to how SEs and salespeople should be out there in the market.
It is. It's the things that sales should know about what pre-sales is doing and vice versa. And then the goal is at an individual contributor level. So as a team of a salesperson and pre-sales for an opportunity or for an account, what are the things that you could do to work together better? And by the way, recent studies by Prescale, Salesforce, and a bunch of others show that there are still huge disconnects. The consensus survey shows that as well. And when a team is working together properly versus a team that's not, there's a difference of 37% in the sales outcomes. So it's substantial and it's just sitting on the table ready to be done, but nobody can really figure it out. So my book is an attempt to help everybody get jump started at an individual contributor level, and the managers can take it to help implement that with their teams as well.
If you ask anybody, it's not like it's going to be a surprise that if you have better working relationships with the entire sales organization, pre-sales sales, and anyone else partnerships, the more they're in sync, the more they're working together, the better you work as a team, the better results you're going to have. Yet I feel like it's so much easier to just spend time focusing on yourself, to blame the others. I mean, I think it's a common pastime of all pre-sales people to pick on their AEs, and common pastime of all AEs to pick on their pre-sales team members. And so is that something that we should stop doing? Is that good? Is that bad? Like, I don't want to tell people you shouldn't, because we've certainly worked with people who deserve a little bit of on both sides, a little bit of the poking at. But is that part of the problem?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And in chapter 10 of the book, I even say that. I say, look, SEs, put the mirror on yourself. Sales, put the mirror on yourself. Realize that there are things that we both can do better. And it doesn't help to do the throwing somebody under the bus. And it usually doesn't amount to it that seriously, but there's that undertone. And what we really need to do is just understand each other better and then leverage each other's strengths. So when it comes to the way to work together, you're right. Many salespeople have figured this out, and it's usually the top performers that have figured it out mostly on their own because it's not systematized. It's not something that's really taught. It's not encouraged by the organizations or by the sales enablement companies. And the salespeople that have figured it out are the ones that are doing the best. In fact, I have a podcast, and next week I'm going to have on there a sales rep that I worked with, believe it or not, 27 years ago, who I talk about in the book, that it started out with him, the classic, hey, Art, I need you to do a demo. This is when I was running a team of SEs. He's like, I need you to do a demo. And we only have one shot at this. And this is going to be huge. All the cliches. He was relatively new. And I was able to help him realize, look, if we just do a demo, that's not going to really work. Here's what will work better for you. So I have a big theme of help me help you. It's like, if I'm going to be helping my AE or AM, what can they do to help me so that they're going to be better for it? And who could argue with that? It's going to be something that helps them, and likewise backwards the other way too. So I definitely recommend that we turn any of those criticisms into looking in the mirror and seeing what can we do to help dispel that and just try to work together better.
What do you think it is that makes people kind of jump to those initial conclusions? In that example you gave, we have to do a demo. Let's rush in and do a demo. Why do we take that approach? Because I've been in that situation before too, where something appears to be the thing we should do, but actually taking a step back, aligning the team can be better. So why do you think that is?
Well, having been a salesperson myself, I know that what I want to do is try to close the deal quickly. And because pre-sales is so good at what we do, and especially, obviously I'm mostly focused on B2B, very complex sales, consultative sales and all that. The SE is critical to the whole solution and showing the business value and all that. So I think that the salesperson figures out or hopes that it's a shortcut that they can take. They can expedite the sale by jumping in with showing something, and that their SE is going to, really make it shine, and the client's going to love it, and then they'll move forward. But in the words of, mainly I've heard John Kerr say this, and he said, somebody else said it, but I couldn't find the origin. Our solutions have no inherent value. Our solutions have no inherent value. It's up to us. That's harsh, isn't it? Right? But think about it. Nobody cares about what we have. They didn't wake up this morning saying, oh, I got to buy some of your stuff, right? So the salesperson trying to get this pre-sales person to do that, I think sets it up for failure. It would only be luck if you actually showed the right thing, because you got to do the discovery. And that means the salesperson's doing more work, which they don't really necessarily want to do. But you know what? If they've done proper qualification, if we have the systems in place that document what we've learned, now we should be able to go in there and find out what they need exactly, show what they need and only what they need. Don't show too much. And then it should move forward quicker. So I think that that's a big part of it.
No, it's interesting that you brought this up, because at SoulCon at the workshop, when you were kind of teaching a little bit about this topic, you had us break up into tables where we actually explored, what does this look like from the AE's perspective? What does this look like from the SE's perspective? And at my table, I remember talking, and there's one point that we arrived at, which is often with that luck, an AE may get lucky. And especially if you sell to enterprise specifically, this maybe isn't as big of an issue for those that sell more high frequent sales. But let's say as an AE, you maybe only close 2 to 3 deals a year. If you've tried everything, you've done all the best practices, but the deal that you won happens to be something you lucked into something, you're going to assume that's the way to do it. I've definitely worked with account executives who their first big sale at a company was just show the demo and we'll see what happens. And it happened to work. And so unfortunately, this is what worked. I'm going to do this on every deal. And it's up to us in pre-sales, especially if you're a pre-sales leader where you have got a very, very broad view of the portfolio at the company that only maybe your CRO sees other than you. It's your job to help educate, like you were saying, help me help you, right? Help them to understand, yes, this worked once. Here's what works 90% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the other thing too that I think is missed. And as pre-sales, we know this, is that the client inherently trusts us. And we come in with trust. And that's another reason why I think the salesperson is quick to hand it over to us, because they go, oh, they're going to trust you. They're going to like what you say. They're going to believe it. They're going to want it. But there still could be a huge disconnect because anybody that I've worked with in pre-sales and my team and myself, I would feel like even we do know how to pull it out of the fire. Like we can make it work, but that's a lot of stress and it's not the optimal. I think we sometimes leave money on the table as a result. So here's what I like to think about is pre-sales comes with trust that could be lost. Sales does not have trust that needs to be gained. So this is again where we can partner together. And it's like, if the salesperson isn't involved enough, they're going to not be able to gain that trust. So why don't they get some trust by doing proper discovery, learn about the client, show that they did the homework. That should be part of qualification. And again, we're not generalizing saying that they are all not doing this. These are the formulas to success, is to do the proper qualification, the discovery. Then when you meet with the client, you've already got some things you can say like, hey, others like you typically are saying that this is an issue. How does that compare to your situation? And the salesperson can add value to it as well. And now it elevates both teams so that we're helping the client and we are trusted together.
So we're kind of talking about the gap between what the solution is in a vacuum and what the buyer really needs. And you're kind of getting to some of how we get aligned with that. So tell us more about how you get pre-sales and sales actually in touch with what the customer is looking for to hit those right points to move the deal forward.
So at the risk of making it sound like there's silos, because that's what we're trying to break down, there is something to be said about, I often show it, and in the book I show it as a pyramid, where an organizational structure, you've got the higher level CEO and CXO level, middle is directors, VPs, managers. The bottom of the pyramid is the doers, the implementers, and even IT might be there and other enablement type things inside the organization. Generally speaking, on that pyramid, the higher up you go, the more business focused it's going to be. The lower levels, it's going to be more technical and execution focused. So there is a bit of an alignment with pre-sales being the bottom up to the middle and knowing about the top. And then the salesperson should be owning the top and the middle and then having an awareness of the bottom. So what I show in the book is a really healthy overlap that needs to happen so that the gap doesn't happen. So it's like top down and bottom up. You meet right in the middle because it's the managers and the VP level that are trying to get the work done. They don't have the resources they need and stuff like that. And many of the solutions that we all provide are going to be enablers for them to do the business. And it obviously takes an investment. Well, they need to go and get that money to justify purchasing our solutions. And that money is going to come from the top. So sales working with the top of the business needs and down to and including those that are executing. And then us, I say us because we're on a pre-sales podcast here, but pre-sales really owning the bottom and then connecting it. Everybody needs to have it connected, but everybody can't do the whole spectrum all the way up and down. So that's a big thing to think about with the gap. And in the book, by the way, there's a complimentary worksheet that I have that goes with it that's available on my website, teamsalesdevelopment.com. It is designed for this type of thing to be exposed. So you use it with your salesperson, with your pre-sales person on an opportunity and work through it. And then you find out these gaps as you go through when you begin to apply the different concepts.
I read your book, Art. I think that's actually what kicked off me reaching out to you a few months ago saying, hey, Art, this is a topic we want to have more discussion on in Pre-Sales Collective. And so I invited you to run a monthly workshop that we do. So I really appreciate you doing that. And that's led to you being at SoulCon and being here. So I definitely recommend people to pick it up. There's one thing I want to get back to that you mentioned earlier, because I've got another question kind of related to it, where you were talking about there's no inherent value in the products that we're selling, which we kind of said it. We kind of like, well, that's really good. And then we move past it. But I want to come back to it because it's an important point that someone might be stewing on that going, what the heck could you possibly mean? There's so much value in my product that I sell. What are you talking about? I don't believe you. So unpack that a little bit, because I think you're right. And I've heard you speak about this before. Unpack that a little bit about why isn't there value in our products and the features of the things that we sell? What do you mean by that?
I think it goes to what do we mean by value? So value means what is the benefit that somebody's going to get out of it? What's the business outcome that's generated as a result of using your solution? Nobody's going to spend money or consume services or whatever if there's no value to it. So starting with the end in mind, and we think about what we're trying to do here is client success, which means they have either bought it, they're paying for a license, they're consuming it. That means that they are seeing the value because it's helping them. So backing it all the way up to the front is our solutions, while we might know how it applies and while we might even be sure that we have the right answer, they will not perceive. And the key word here is perception of value. Perception of value. We need to get them to perceive the value so that they want it. I like to say we turn the sell into a buy and a push into a pull. So when they see the value and they go, "Oh, that looks like what I want," and now they're pulling it, we know we're golden. So what happens is it's like a Venn diagram where on the one side, what we have is we have the needs of the client, and then we have our solutions as the other side of the Venn diagram, and where they overlap is value. And what I mean by that is the parts where we don't have a solution for things that they have problems, well, that doesn't make any sense. We can't help them out. The places where we have a solution that they don't have a need, that doesn't make any sense. Not going to want to buy it. It's in the middle where they overlap, where the value is seen, where our solutions help them with their pain or with the gain that they want to achieve. Got to do that through discovery. And the perception of value comes when they realize what they are trying to accomplish is solved by our solution. So that's why we say our solutions by themselves have no inherent value. It's up to us as sales. And really, we should be thinking about the buyer to help them see what the value is, why it will benefit them. And then that's where they start to pull. So we create the perception of value in their mind. And of course, it's documented with, numbers and everything else, but that's the Venn diagram if you think about it.
I do love that Venn diagram and visual. I think that's 100% right. And I think the problem that we have that I've seen so many times, and I've been guilty of this myself, is where we've spent every day of our last however many years we've been at this company in our product, taking all the messages from product marketing, taking direction from our leadership and our peers about how the things that are the buttons and the clicks and the widgets and everything translate to value. So we have almost shortcutted in our brain. We're like, that click, that's like 10 million in revenue for you, obviously. But it's not obvious to the client. And so we just go up and they're like, look, button. Do you want to buy? They're like, I'm not buying a button. What are you talking about? Because they've not been flooded with the value connections that we have as SCs during our onboarding, during our training, during our product updates that we have, that we live in every single day. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that you have to check that a little bit. You're like, what do I assume people automatically think when they look at this screen? Honestly, they probably see nothing that you see. So you got to check that.
Great point. So one thing is the curse of knowledge, and John Kerr talks about this too, is that we do know our stuff so well that we just assume that somebody's going to also understand it. So we always have to think of the so what. When we're showing something, why does this matter? Why should they care? And by the way, it's not that, oh, this is my favorite feature, I love this piece of it. No, they don't care what you think
so
about
what.
it. No,
That's not the so what. No.
Right. And we can and we should be passionate about it. But it's why would they be excited about it? Here's what it will do for you. This is what you're going to get out of it. And now they start to see, again, the classic whiff 'em. What's in it for me? As soon as they see that, and then they see the way it helps them, that's going to make it better. What you were saying there, Jack, there's an old Dilbert cartoon. I'll have to dig it up somewhere, but it's basically like Dilbert on the phone going, and it has this, and it has this, and it has this. Want to buy some? Just because I told you all the things it has, you should buy it. One last point on this too is take a look at your marketing page of your own company and read it as a client and see if anything jumps out at you as actual value. Because often there's even a space that says business outcomes on a marketing page, and all they are is features and functions. They don't actually say it will help you improve this. It will help you reduce this. So again, not anything against marketing, but that's how much we think people will just figure out what it is. And the last thing I'll just add real quick is that Venn diagram. There may be obvious things, and this is sometimes where the salesperson's like, oh, show them solution A, because that's what they really need. And like you said, we might luck out and it might be the right thing. But unless we ask the questions, they aren't going to really trust that we've figured out the right answer. They're just going to feel like it's imposed upon them. So one thing is asking discovery to confirm, even if we think it's the right answer, confirm through discovery that it's really what they want. I had that happen one time. We showed something. It absolutely was the right thing. They said, no, we don't know about that. Not quite sure, because we didn't connect it to what their needs were. We did further discovery and we confirmed that the needs were demanding this solution. We tried to show that same solution again. And guess what happened? They still said, no, we don't want that. So we blew it. We blew our first impression where we could have found out what they really wanted, do the Venn diagram of the needs, confirm the needs, and then show the solution. And now they realize, oh, this is for me. I see how you're helping me solve the problem. And the other thing is get that Venn diagram to overlap more by asking more discovery. So find out adjacent needs, find out needs that are up and across in the organization. You may be able to solve two things at once or more than just the pain that they're currently solving. And they'll love that because you're going to really add value just in the way you're interacting.
That's a great point and actually a great story, because oftentimes the conversation, almost going back to what we were saying before, the whole just show them the demo thing, that if we rush into it, and if I'm hearing you right, if you can rush into it, you risk showing them what they actually do need to see. If you don't know how to connect it to their value, they're going to on their own dismiss that as something I don't need. And you often don't have a chance to go, no, it really is, even when you like, they'll make their own assumption of value or non-value.
That's right.
And then you don't have a chance to come back and correct that later.
Yeah, because it's a push, right? It's a push. When we ask the questions and they see that we're truly interested in them and have appreciation of their situation, even with our experience. Now, when we start to ask those questions, they might even ask us to tell more. Hey, tell me more about that. What are your other ideas that you have? So it becomes a dialogue instead of a push.
As I'm trying to think about how do I, either as an individual contributor, maybe someone listening is leading a team going, I love this. I want my team to do more of this. And I think back to the onboarding that often is provided for a lot of pre-sales teams, which is so learn this feature, how this feature works, learn this feature, tell the story around this feature, maybe gets to some type of value statement, a generic value statement. But certainly I don't feel like a lot of onboarding gets to being that sort of nimble discovery-based value first, features last kind of direction we're talking about here. How do you train that? How do you onboard that? How do you build that into your learning if you're trying to even just do this for yourself?
I've been involved with a lot of both SE academies and also like SDR, BDR academies, sales academies, where they take people right out of college, or maybe it's a career shift and they're doing sales for the first time or pre-sales for the first time. And what amazes me is it's a lot of feature function. Here's all about our company, and all that type of thing, which is needed. What I feel like needs to happen very early on, and what I'd recommend is instead of double clicking, unclick a couple levels, go out, take the meta level and back up a little bit and say, what is our ultimate goal here? And if we always think about client success as the ultimate goal, then what are the things, even in understanding a product, that matters when it comes to client success? Why would somebody care about this? And again, you can know it inside and out. That's not going to matter. So I advocate, and part of what I have in the book, in fact, I started this with just sales and pre-sales. And then I realized, and it cost me, I had to do 2 extensions of 8 weeks each for writing my book. And it cost me extra money to do that. But I extended my book writing 16 weeks to add the meta level, where I unclicked out a couple levels to say, thinking of the client success in mind, and then all the way from hello, whatever that hello is, whether it's an automated system, whether it's the website, whether it is a SDR, BDR, what are all the things that happen and how can we all work together better? So I would say get that bigger level of what is the buying process, and especially what is the buying process? What is the buyer going through, so that when you get engaged at a certain point, you understand what they've done so far and what they're trying to accomplish with the goal of consuming your product ultimately. So I've started doing that. Whenever anybody asks me to do an academy, I ask questions about that and then try to get further to the left in their engagement with their new hires, so that they've got that as the big picture. Now the puzzle pieces can fit in there. I'll give you an example. At one company that I was doing this for, the SDRs were told, your goal is to get the next meeting. That's what they're being trained on. Now that's true, but what is the person that is going to be setting the meeting with going to do with what you just did with that client? It's not just you're getting the next meeting. You're setting up a whole sequence of events here that we want to think all the way to the end. So it's get client success in mind, and then what are the next steps we need to take, which includes somebody diving deeper with them to find out more. So I think that that's the type of thing to do. And the book is there as a resource, and it really is a legacy thing for me to share what I've learned, as you mentioned, Matthew. In the book, I even have a recommendation. If you're brand new, just skip through these particular chapters. And I would say even just skim through it and use it as a reference guide. There are stories in it, and it does tell a story of customer engagement, at the same time using some things like that. And so I went into detail about the buying process. And one last thing about that, that's also a SE and AM to make the seamless sales. What I realized is pre-sales, I always find that interesting because isn't sales pre-sales also? Aren't they before the sale?
It's always bothered me from the first day.
Everything's
It's always bothered me. You're so right. Thank you.
I started to think about what are we really doing here? We're doing selling, but what are we doing? We're trying to enable the buyer. So what I did is I put a layer around this that's based on the engagement process, and I call it solution enablement. So it's solution enablement from hello all the way through consumption. And then it's account management, not as a person or a sales role, but managing the client count. And that's the overarching ring. And that's why on the book, I have the arrow, that's the continuous. It's a continuum. And in the book, it's a continuum. Many sales cycles or even buying cycles are shown as a linear process where there's an exit point. It's not an exit point, and it shouldn't be. It's a circle. And that's what we're doing. Solution enablement and account management. So that's the other play on the seamless sales.
I think every company out there who has a pre-sales function could do more to start their new hires with that kind of client-centric, top-down mindset. What are we actually doing here? I'm very familiar with that idea of get the next meeting or move us to the next conversation with the next level of executive stakeholders. And I think that is right. But that by itself will miss the point, just like you said. You need to have this overarching narrative of like, what are we actually building here? How do we get to mutual client success? And then underneath that, we can create these kind of smaller narratives step by step. It's this give and take always, right? Because every sale is a series of small steps to get there, but those small steps have to be directed by your larger objective. And I just think that it's so easy to assume that your new pre-sales hire is going to have that framework or have had experience with that in the past. And there's just an opportunity, I think, to get everyone more on the same page, no matter where your team is today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned in the book, Southwest Airlines did that. I think they still do it where they have everybody kind of either shadow or actually do a different role. Have the person that's at the desk go down and do baggage handling for a little bit and all that. And with the idea of a little bit of cross-pollination in terms of what each person's doing, so you have a better appreciation for it. The other thing, and that we will not have time to go into this, and I don't want to open a can of worms, but it's worth mentioning, this whole debate about does pre-sales or SEs continue to get involved for client success, or does client success maybe get involved earlier in the process? And I think that that's the next phase of where this is going to go, is because not only for new hires to understand the whole thing, but to guide the buyer through the process. We all know that the handoff, throwing it over the wall to implementation, not a good idea, right? Doesn't work.
You're just asking to be on another podcast. And yeah, you should come back in. We'll talk about that for the second piece. You're absolutely right.
Exactly. That's a whole other thing, but it's worth thinking about. Now it's about consumption mostly. Most of the sales now, SaaS sales and all that, it's not like back in the day when you had a CD or software, you delivered somebody and you took the revenue. That's the world that I grew up in. Now it's consumption. And I even like to not call it close. I don't say we're closing the deal. It's a commitment to consume. That's what we're aiming for, is a commitment to consume where they say, yes, I will do this and I will be using it. And both the technical decision maker and business decision maker agree on that it's good for the business and the technology does what they want.
Yeah. Great lead. And I definitely think that's something we could pick up in another conversation, but we are almost out of time for today. Art, real quick, I've got two last questions. First one, how can someone get in touch with you if they want to chat with you, connect with you? Where can they find you?
LinkedIn is always a good place. I'm the only Art Fromm that I know of, or at least the only one that's LinkedIn/in/Art Fromm. So you can get me there and connect. And then also my website, teamsalesdevelopment.com. I've got a wealth of information on there, including my events page where I highlight things like this podcast, the other things that I've done with Presales Collective and others. So you can go back and take a look at that as a resource. Those are the two main places where you can get a hold of me.
Please connect, follow Art. Great person to know. And second question is, what's the final thought you want to leave us with? You've given us a lot of pieces, but what's the final thing you want to leave everybody with as they're listening?
Well, look at opportunities for having empathy for the other person's role and help sell the other person on why it's a good idea to do this, because they also need to perceive value in this relationship. And therefore, what are their needs? What are their drivers? Sales is very much obviously quota driven. So how is pre-sales helping them achieve quota? Pre-sales is very recognition driven. So what is sales doing to help the SE get recognition in terms of contributing to the overall business case for the opportunity and things like that? So it is at an operational level. I think it needs to start at the grassroots. And for any leaders that are listening, sales enablement, these are things that are money left on the table. That connection and a tighter connection between your pre-sales organization and your sales organization is something that's sitting there ready for you. You don't need to implement new tools or change a lot of things out. It's really about getting that to happen. So hit me up for, sales kickoffs, seminars, workshops, and certainly check the book out. The Kindle version is the cost of a Venti Frappuccino at Starbucks. It's
Gotta love that price comparison with Starbucks there.
Right.
Excellent.
And it even has color pictures in it, but the importance is it'll help you sell better, make more money, and have happier clients, which is what we're all trying to do.
Absolutely. Well, Art, thanks so much for being on the show. Matthew, as always, thank you for being my fantastic co-host, and we'll see everyone in the next episode.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.